Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner. As you can tell by the playmat here, we have in fact a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile, and it is going to be on Red Eyes post October ban list and Soul Fusion. I was really hoping that this deck would actually get something out of Soul Fusion, in particular the import of a certain Dragon Link 2 monster out of the Link Reigns pack, but Konami, in one of their many stupid decisions, decided not to import that again. I've only been waiting on this thing to come over for the last couple of sets, but alas, we just can't seem to get Hieratic's Seal of the Celestial Spheres, let alone Aramage Jasmine and the Mermaid Link monster. I can understand them not giving us Needle Fiber and Cherubini because those two cards together would probably cause irreparable damage to the TCG format, but why the hell is the Hieratic and Mermaid Link monsters not? Why are they not here yet? That's just going to be something I will complain about with every single booster set release over here until we actually get them. So that being said though, as far as this deck's concerned, I never really did make an update to it after the release of Red Eye Slash Dragon and the other cards from the Legendary Duelist set. I was just not really that into Yu-Gi-Oh! At that time. But I've started playing more frequently than before. See aforementioned complaint about Standard Vanguard on some of the other videos that I've made and why I would be more interested in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. And as far as this deck's concerned, I decided I would just give a certain concept of Red Eyes a shot that I'd seen pop up on the organization's OCG deck lists every now and then, and just to see how it would translate over here. The long and short of it is that it doesn't really work it doesn't work as well over here as it does there because we're missing the aforementioned Hieratic Link monster, plus Japan happens to have Skill Drain at 3, which is this deck plays at max copies over there. So I've had to make do with some alterations, but I just wanted to see how the concept of a Red Eyes control deck works, and it's a thing. Like, I have no delusions of this being able to top a regionals, but you might be able to steal a win off of like a meta deck over there, just because Goza Match is really strong right now. But for locals play, this isn't really that bad of a deck to pilot. Like, the format is slowed compared to previous ones, so you can play a strategy like this that wants to stunt your opponent and beat them down with big recurring monsters, and I think it could work. So with that being said, let's dive into this. I'll give you guys the deck profile and give my thoughts on how some cards work in here and if I like this concept of Red Eyes and will continue to play it or not. So for the actual monsters, we have for our big guys, one Red Eyes Black Dragon, one Black Flare Dragon, and one Red Med. Red Med's at 1 because that's the only one we can run. And these two are 1 each because they are garnets and you do not want to see them in your hand ever, but they are necessary because both of your fusion monsters require these in order to be played. I will admit that Black Flare's Gemini effect does come up every now and then, and it makes actually a nice little play in tandem with Borosword Dragon, because if you're able to Gemini summon this while a Borosword's on board, he swings for 24, then you switch it to defense with Borosword, attack for 6k. If they're somehow still alive even after that, you can then ping them for 24 burn damage, and then they're, like, definitely dead. So, that's a thing that comes up every now and then. But these two are also normal monsters most of the time, so you can bring them back with Return of the Red Eyes and link them off into certain Link monsters, and also make rank 7. So, like, resolving Return of the Red Eyes repeatedly is one of this deck's win cons. If you're able to like keep rolling monsters off of that, you should have a chance of winning your game. Then for the normal summonable Red Eyes monsters, I'm playing 3 copies of Red Eyes Baby Dragon and 2 copies of Gearfree, the Red Eyes Iron Knight. Both of their effects are but they are, again, Red Eyes monsters that are normal summonable, so that turns on your Fang with Chain and your Return. Gearfree's effect is once per turn when he gets equipped with a card, you can, I believe, immediately destroy it, as well as destroy one spell or trap card. Yeah, so you can destroy one of those equipped cards to destroy one of your opponent's back row. Also, once per turn, you can send one equipped card you control that is equipped to this card to the graveyard to special summon to target a level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Neither of these things are a hard once per turn, so if you're somehow able to resolve multiple Gearfrees, that is a thing. The real problem with this guy is that you have no like efficient way of equipping this guy very frequently without something like Black Metal Dragon. Red Eyes does not have like a Red Eyes themed Axe of Despair in order to immediately proc this guy. Otherwise, I'd make things like Dragon Shrine much better, or Red Eyes Insight, because you could open Red Eyes Insight with this and your theoretical Axe of Fools and immediately summon your Red Eyes Black Dragon out of the graveyard and go into Link 2 or something like that. So yeah, but he is 1800 attack, so equipped with this, or Black Metal Dragon allows him for hit to certain numbers. And yeah, it's also level 4, so you could potentially make rank 4s off of this, although I'm not playing them. He is a warrior monster, so that's a neat thing if we ever decide to incorporate the warrior engine into this deck. And then the baby dragons are honestly not that good for how much it costs to find for these things. Like, this thing is like almost 20 bucks, I think. And his effects are just like, so his effect is, and why I keep harping on this, when he's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard. Yes, destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, not by a card effect as well, just in battle. And this is a card that was printed in 2017 when destroyed by battle effects were extremely unplayable then. So when he's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster from your deck and equip him to it. And the equipped monster gains 300 attack. Also, when this card is sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you can add a level 1 dragon monster from your deck to your hand. Now, I do have to point out that, like Gearfried, he's not a hard once per turn on these effects, so you can float into another one when the first one dies and equip it. And I do believe that it doesn't matter how the equipped card gets sent to the graveyard, it just has to fall off, and I do believe it triggers. It's not like Dragoon of the Atlas, where it has to be sent by a card effect in order to get its bonus. He just has to fall off, but I could be wrong on that too. But the search effect is neat because Black Metal Dragon has become better than last time, as when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a Red Eyes card from your deck to hand, and since Link Karibo now exists, you can just normal summon this, link into Link Karibo, search your Red Eyes Insight, and use that and go from there. This guy can equip himself from hand or field to a Red Eyes monster, give it a 600 attack buff, so bringing it back with Red Med and slapping it on or doing something is pretty good. And our last level 1 dragon is the Black Stone of Legend, who can be used to pull a card out of the deck if need be. I don't really use his effect that often, and truth be told, since Light Pulsar Dragon is not in this build, I don't have a very efficient means of getting him to the graveyard that often. Although I am also playing Twin Twisters, so it's not like I can't completely get him, but basically, I think I use his graveyard effect more often than his on-field effect. The graveyard effect allows you to shuffle back any level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster into the deck to add them back, so it allows you to make your Red Eyes Insights or Fusions live, which is pretty good because both of those cards are integral for this deck. Then for the non-Red Eyes cards, but still playable things, 2 copies of Mono Dragon Zernatron. This is my level 6 dragon target for the fusion of Meteor Comet Dragon. I'm not playing Light Pulsar at this time. I was playing it before, but since I had to cut out BLS and Ogres because Ogre is not really that good in the main deck right now, I decided to just cut out all the more potential bricks. So, Zernatron is a level 6 Dark Dragon, and it has a really useful effect of when your spell or trap card is destroyed or leaves the field or is banished by your opponent's card effect, I believe. Yes, if a spell or trap you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, or is now in the graveyard, or banished, except during a damage step, you can special summon this guy from your hand or graveyard, then choose one spell or trap card that is in your graveyard or banished, and immediately reset it. If you summon Mono Dragon Zernatron this way, he is banished, and you can only use his effect once per turn. So, because this deck likes to play back row, particularly Red Eyes, Spirit, Return of the Red Eyes, in addition to Fang with Chain and Floodgates and Solemn Strikes and shit, this guy can be used to punish your opponent for Cosmic Cyclone, Galaxy Cyclone, Twin Twisters, Heavy Storm Duster by slamming himself onto the board, resetting those back row, and because you can send it off from the deck to the graveyard through the effects of Red Eyes Fusion, it doesn't matter if you have it in hand or in graveyard, he's still going to be able to do something. Then, 2 copies of Inspector Border. This is one of the things that carried over from the previous build of this deck I was rocking, where Inspector Border is just a good normal summon turn 1. It shuts off hand traps so you can resolve Red Eyes Insight without being interfered with. And unless your opponent controls a Link monster, Fusion monster, Ritual monster, Xyz monster, or Synchro monster, they cannot activate monster effects up to the number of those in play. So, like, it's really hard to describe Inspector Border to someone who's never played it before, but the long of it is, if you don't have any of those monster types I just mentioned, you can't activate monster effects. If you have one of those monster types, you get one monster effect this turn. If you have a Fusion and a Synchro in play, and you haven't used any monster effects for the turn, you get 2 monster effects. And this makes Border really powerful against certain deck types that do not go into their extra deck that frequently, such as Altergeist and Pure Trickstar. They can't activate their monster effects, period, as long as Border is on field, and Altergeist and Trickstar are not big enough to get over this guy without any additional help, and hopefully you can protect this guy with something. So it's just it's a good stun card going first. Going second, I'm not so sure as much, but it has its moments. And then 3 Ash Blossom, this card's staple. It got reprinted as a super rare, admittedly. The super rare is hard to pull and is also expensive, but you need this card to play Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm sorry. Then for the spells, 3 copies of Red Eyes Insight and 3 copies of Red Eyes Fusion for your main Red Eyes cards. So Insight dumps a Red Eyes from hand or deck to the graveyard to search a Red Eyes spell or trap. Red Eyes Fusion, in spite of how horrendously overbalanced it is still needed at 3 because resolving it is really good for this deck. Resolving Red Eyes Fusion for Comet Dragon puts 3 cards in your graveyard, which allows you to thin your deck by 3, and Comet Dragon floats into a monster when it gets killed, and that effect is not limited to once per turn, truth be told, so it's good for linking off. Going first, you'll probably go into Comet Dragon or Slash Dragon if you have back row you want to protect and a means to equip the Slash Dragon, but otherwise it's going to be Comet Dragon. Comet Dragon floats down into your vanilla, and you can hopefully go for there. Like, I really, really hope that someday they make a Neo Red Eyes Fusion that has more or less the same effect as original Fusion, but removes this stupid you cannot summon other monsters for the rest of the turn, because ever since this card got printed and they've made clones of it, Thunder Dragon Fusion, Neo's Fusion, and such forth, they've removed the whole you can't summon other monsters for this turn thing except for blah blah blah. Like, I would gladly take this card if it said you cannot special summon other monsters for the rest of this turn except for Red Eyes monsters, because then I can at least normal summon a Gear Freed or do something. Infuriating. Anyway, moving on. In addition to that, we have 3 copies of Twin Twisters. We are in a back row heavy format. Sky Striker, Altergeist, True Draco are things. Twin Twisters helps just clear those away. It's difficult for this deck to power through lots of back row. I do believe you can do it to some extent, but not very frequently. 2 copies of Call by the Grave. Ash Blossom hurts this deck immensely, so I want to shut that off. Ogre on Comet Dragon when it's trying to resolve is also annoying. Then 1 copy of Monster Reborn, because I hear being able to Red Eyes Insight a Darkness Metal into the graveyard and then immediately reborn it back is pretty good. Then for the traps, for the Red Eyes traps, 1 Spirit, 1 Fang with Chain, and 1 Return to the Red Eyes. This is a Monster Reborn for any Red Eyes. As long as you have a Red Eyes in play, this can special summon 1 normal monster from your graveyard during either player's turn. Also, if it's destroyed by your opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon any Red Eyes monster from the graveyard, including Red Med. So, one of the goals with this deck is to stick a Red Eyes on board with normal monsters in the graveyard and just continually resolve this so you may link climb and just beat your opponent's face in with 2400 attackers. Fang with Chain, you can equip it to a Red Eyes monster and it gets to attack 2 monsters per battle phase. Also, you can send this to the graveyard to equip one of your opponent's monsters to your Red Eyes card. Your Red Eyes monster's attack becomes the same as the equipped monster, but it's removal, and it doesn't trigger destruction effects because you're more or less sucking it up like you would with Thousand Eyes Restrict. It's useful for getting cards that have annoying float effects out of the way, like what's a good example? Like a Sky Striker Link monster, and they've got a Ray in the graveyard. Unless they have Eagle Booster to protect it, you're getting that thing off the board, and granted your Red Eyes will be smaller, but hopefully you can just link it away or do something else. Then, 2 copies of Solemn Strike. It's a very good card this format. 3 copies of Goes and Match. Your deck is primarily dark, so you can run this Floodgate, and it's really powerful against a good bulk of the decks in the format. Altergeist and Sky Striker are multi-attribute, so this shuts them off from making any major board plays. Like, this is really good at shutting down Multi-Faker, and that's something that you can't do with Rivalry of Warlords, which is something I considered playing. In addition to that, Goki, while most of their main deck is comprised of Earth Warrior monsters, their extra deck is not, so it's difficult for U-Link boards in order to actually build a board. And it's also a good card going second, because if your opponent builds a board, you can just set this, do your thing, and then on their standby phase, you flip this up, and they're more restricted in what cards they can have on the board to push you in with. Also, 1 copy of Skill Drain, because with the exception of Red Mid, most of your main deck doesn't really do much on board, so you just knock them out of their monster effects and beat them down with your Red Eyes Return stuff. Meteor Comet Dragon loses out on his burn effect if skill drains in play, but it still floats into a normal monster when it dies, so that is a thing. And that's it for the main deck. As far as the extra deck goes, I'm playing 1 copy of Comet Dragon, 1 copy of Red Eye / Dragon. Comet is a level 7 Red Eyes monster and a level 6 Dragon. When it's fusion summoned, you can send a Red Eyes from your hand or deck to the graveyard to inflict half of its attack as damage. Also, when it's sent from the monster zone to the graveyard, you can special summon a normal monster from your graveyard, which is really useful if you open with this and Red Eyes Return, and your opponent's not able to like break your board. Then you can use Red Eyes Return to bring back one of your Red Eyes fusion material, and you immediately link off into a Link 2. This will trigger bringing back your Red Eyes, which allows you to link that into, say, a Link Spider or an Imduck, and immediately link that into a Link 3 or something like that. So this is really useful for link climbing, which is something that this deck appreciates in Master Rule 4 format. This card is a Red Eyes Black Dragon and a Warrior monster. When a Red Eyes monster attacks, you can equip a Warrior monster to this card. It gains 200 attack this way. Also, when this card is destroyed by your opponent's card, either by battle or effect, and sent to graveyard, you can special summon as many of the equipped monsters as possible. Also, during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a card effect that targets a card on your side of the board, you can send a card in your equipped zone to the graveyard. It doesn't have to be strictly him, like would be with Gearfried. It can be things equipped to Gearfried. You can do that in order to negate and kill that card effect, which is good for destroying... It's good for stopping cards that would threaten your Gozen match or your Solemn Strikes and such. You don't go into this guy as often as this one, but if you open with, say, a Red Eyes Fang with Chain or a Black Metal Dragon, you can open with this guy instead, slap the Black Metal Dragon on, and then like have your floodgates set. Then for the Ixies monsters, we're playing just 1 Flare Metal and 1 Big Eye. These are, in my opinion, the best rank 7s to run for this deck. Then for the Link monsters, 1 Borreload, 1 Boral Sword, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Triple Burst Dragon, 1 Wee Witch's Apprentice. This is the Link 2 you go into while under Gozen match. In fact, all these monsters are Dark Link monsters, so you can go into them while under Gozen. You can also go into Space Insulator while under Gozen too. So those are just some things to keep in mind. 1 Nightmare Phoenix. It's like it was between this and Cerberus, and I would rather go into this guy to pop back row. Your monsters should be big enough that you don't need Cerberus's removal effect. 1 Isolde because I side Reaper. And then for your Link ones, Link Karibo, because you can use it with Black Metal Dragon, and then 1 Link Spider and 1 Imduck because these both use normal monsters to make, so Red Eyes Black Dragon or a non-Gemini summoned Black Flare Dragon. You could probably run 2 Link Spiders instead, but I just like having the 1 and 1 of each. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, you don't go into your Link Force that often, but Borreload and Boral Sword are useful for just outing certain threats. Borreload's one of the best Link monsters in the game. Can't be targeted by card effects, can reduce monsters' attack and defense by 500, and can't be responded to. When attack something, you can steal it to a zone you point to, it doesn't target, and it dies at the end of the next turn. This guy can switch a monster from attack to defense, your opponent can't respond to it, and if you do, it can attack twice, it can't be killed in battle, and when it attacks an opponent's monster once per turn, you can gain half of that card's attack and reduce its attack by half, and it's useful for just outing things like Ultimate Falcon or Towers monsters in general. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, like I said before, this deck, the concept of it is neat, but unfortunately it doesn't work as well here as it could as it does in Japan, because we're missing many of the cards necessary, like the Hieratic Link monster. The Hieratic Link monster allows you to constellate your dragons into a Link 2 that's easy to make. You can use it under Rivalry, Skill Drain. It can tribute itself to bounce an opponent's monster, and then when it's tributed, it floats into Light Pulsar Dragon or Red Eyes Baby Dragon, which makes this card significantly better. And then, yeah, you just block your opponent out of being able to make very many plays while you beat them down and hopefully win. It's something, but like I said at the start of the video, I don't think it's nearly as competitive as I would like it to be, but for the sake of like locals or maybe even like a super small regionals you could try, but I would not recommend it for regionals. I do not expect this to be able to top an event where like Sky Striker and Altergeist are running around at near full strength. And that's it for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you're waiting for me to put a real Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile up, I could possibly put up Sky Striker at some point. I've got that built. I'm trying to build Thunder Dragon and Danger PK, but I'm waiting on Soul Fusion to come out and prices to stabilize for that. I want to build Thunder Dragon really bad, and you guys know this, but I also don't want to drop $300 on the deck because everything got rarity pumped like I suspected it would be. That's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Until next time, this is Boost39, jacking out.